Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. 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 All right, we're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. We'll consider this our green room for today's event. Just testing the audio video, making sure that the live stream is coming through loud and clear. I'll try to go back and edit this video after and clear out some of the green room content. Going to get started here in just a couple of short minutes. If you are joining in live, let us know where you're joining in from, where you are out in the world. I'll be broadcasting live from Charlotte, North Carolina. This is the Charlotte area SharePoint user group. My name's Andy. I'm one of the organizers here. And today we're going to be talking Microsoft Teams. So at the top of the hour, we're going to kick off today's presentation. But again, if you're just dialing in, welcome. Charlotte area SharePoint user group. Let me know in the comments where you're coming from and look forward to some questions and some comments and some interaction here during today's live stream. This should be a lot of fun. Again, just going to get started at the top of the hour. Want to allow people an opportunity to join in and get ready to participate in this conversation on Microsoft Teams. My name's Andy. I'm one of the organizers for the Charlotte area SharePoint user group. Been working with this user group since 2014. Been a SharePoint guy since 2010, so a long time in the space. But we do all things here beyond SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Viva Engage, the entire Viva platform. Also work with OneDrive, and then Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. There's so much to learn. It's hard to keep track of it all. But if you're tuning in live, let me know in the comments where you're coming in from. And as we start moving through our presentation today, feel free to ask any questions that you might have. A lot of live demos to cover as we dive into this topic. All right, it's about time to get started. I want to welcome everybody to our April 2023 meetup for the Charlotte area SharePoint user group. My name's Andy. I'm one of the organizers here, and I'm going to be driving today's presentation as we talk about what's new in Microsoft Teams. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of really cool demos to go through, but just a little bit of housekeeping as we get ready to get started. If you're new here, welcome to our monthly meetup. This is going to be a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We're going to live stream this one actually, and we're going to see how this goes with the YouTube live stream. Thoughts and comments in the chat window are definitely appreciated as we explore some new ways of engaging and delivering content and working with different technology. So again, any comments you have, feedback is really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this is all gonna work out. So with that, let me dive into a scene and tell you a little bit about us. So one of the main ways that you can engage with us is actually through YouTube. We are Charlotte 365 group on YouTube. For those of you that are joining in here live today, I'll post that in the chat window for you. We do record our sessions. We make those available on YouTube, so you can go back and catch a video later, or you can go back and you can rewatch a video from one of our past events. We got some cool stuff. We've had some really great guest speakers over the last few years, so be sure to check out that content. Our playlist is right there. So be sure to check that out. Also, another way to engage with this user group is actually through Meetup. That's meetup.com/Charlotte area SharePoint user group. I'll put that in the chat window as well for anybody joining in live. I see you've got a number of people here from North Carolina. Welcome to my fellow Carolinians. But yeah, you can join our meetup. That's the main way that we broadcast and talk about upcoming events and keep everybody informed of what's going on. We are on social media as well. You'll find us on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. Just look for Charlotte area SharePoint user group. The logo is pretty much going to be the same across all of those different places. So with that, let's actually talk a little bit about today's topic. And we are here today to talk about what's new in Microsoft Teams. So there's been a ton of new announcements coming from Microsoft related to Teams. Probably the biggest thing that we're going to talk about here today is the new Teams client for Windows. I know there's probably some questions related to that, so we're going to dive into the new Teams client for Windows, some ins and outs, and some things you need to know about moving forward. But on top of that, Microsoft continues to roll out updates and features to the Teams client as a whole. In fact, in like March, there was something like 200 plus features and updates that were listed. So there's a ton of things that have been modified and updated, and we're going to dive into some of that with some of the recent blogs from Microsoft, and we're going to point out some of this stuff, and I'm going to try and demo some of it live as much as I can. But with that, let's actually just talk about the new Teams client and what that means for you as an end user, and what that's going to mean for like your user base, and kind of set expectations with this moving forward. So there's a really great article from Microsoft. I'll send this out as well to those of you that are joining in live. But there's a really great article from Microsoft that's introducing the new Microsoft Teams. And do want to point out this is in preview. So if you haven't read the blog article, links in the chat here. But the new Teams client is in preview. I'm going to walk you through how to get into the Teams client here in just a few minutes. But the blog post is just one of about 6 different references that Microsoft has published where they talk about some of the things that you need to know with the new Teams client. Some of the biggest benefits you're going to see is that it is way faster and it uses fewer resources than the previous Teams client. So if like you're on a Windows machine, you got some limited resources, this should work significantly better than what you've used before. And it's going to boot up faster. It's going to get you into meetings faster. It's going to help you to switch between teams and chat and channels and so forth much quicker than what you might have experienced in the past. So that's a huge performance update. But in order to do that, they had to re-architect the back end. significantly. So it's basically a rebuild from the ground up. They talk a little bit about some of what they've done to actually make it more efficient and to showcase the capabilities. That being said, they got this cool little video. I'm going to try and play this. We're going to see how this goes here in the live stream to show you the previous Teams tenant or Teams client, classic Teams on the left, and the new Teams client on the right. So they're showing the application launch time. You can see the preview is a little bit bigger on the right-hand side, but the Teams client is pretty much up and running 9 seconds in, whereas the classic client going to take a little bit longer for it to boot up. Don't worry, this isn't going to go on for like an hour, but they have significantly improved the launch time of the app. So 22 seconds for the classic client and then 9 seconds for the new client. You also see that it's a lot smoother experience whenever you're scrolling. Switching between channels much faster than what you may have experienced previously. And even just joining a meeting, 2.1 seconds to join into a meeting versus like 4.5 seconds previously. Memory usage is way down. I have tested this. I did a deep dive on this with a colleague of mine a few weeks back, and it is significantly faster. So those are some of the main things that they're going to point out. Now, this is in preview, so before we dive into some of the other amazing features here, let's actually talk about the preview and what that actually means. So with that, let's head into demo land. So here I am. I'm in my classic Microsoft Teams client on my Windows machine. And first thing I'm going to point out is that this is in preview, so you need to be in the EA, the early access, or the preview program in order to work with this. Now, there are a couple of steps involved with that. Some of those are on the administrative side. So if you're in a large organization, they have to allow you to be in the preview program. That's a policy that they set at the admin level. But if you're in the preview program, you should be able to go to your settings menu, and then in the about section, you can switch over into public preview, which is now designated with an EA tag, early access. So early access is public preview. In the tradition of Microsoft renaming things, they've renamed public preview as well. So we need to be in public preview in order for this to work. And then from there, it's just a matter of looking for the toggle switch in the upper left-hand corner. If you don't see that, you might need to just check for an update. Make sure that you got the latest updates on your Teams client. I've already updated mine, so we're good to go. I see the toggle in the upper left-hand corner. So now it's just a matter of flipping the switch and checking out the new Teams client. So going to flip that switch. Teams preview is loading, and just like that, I'm in the new client. Told you it's fast. Now, it does help that I am on an ARM architecture, which is a little bit faster than Intel architecture, but it runs really fast and really smoothly. So need to be in the early access program, and then you can toggle into it. Now, the cool thing about this is preview. Not everything feature parity wise is there yet. So in the event you need to roll back to the classic Teams client, it's just the toggle switch. It'll take you right back into the classic client, it'll reload, and then you'll have full features and some of the other things that we're going to talk about here today. So just that easy to get into it, but make sure you're in that public preview or the early access program. And then there's some blog articles where they talk about making sure that the IT policies for users are actually set up. So just curious, if you are out there in YouTube land, if you've used the new Teams client, just want to get an idea of the audience out there. So let me know in the chat window. All right, so with that, I'm going to toggle back into the new Teams client because that's where I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of my demos, and we're going to be walking through from there. Now, I got a whole list of things that I want to talk about today. So what is the new Teams? Technically, this is Teams 2.1. There's the classic client, which is the older one that we just looked at. There's actually a public version of Teams out there. This was for non-enterprise users that wanted to work with like Microsoft Teams for friends and families and communities. That was actually an install with Windows 11. I believe it might have even been bundled with Windows 11. And then there's the new Teams, which is actually 2.1, but Microsoft's referring to it as the new Teams. So as you're looking through their blog articles, they will refer to it as the new Teams. That's where you're going to see on a lot of those articles. So the new Teams client, as we mentioned, how to get it, public preview, but I do want to emphasize that this is very much Windows only. It has not been released for Mac. It's also not available in the web browser. Many of us work with Teams in our web browser. This is right now for Windows only. However, Microsoft has said they're working to release the new Teams for additional clients in the coming months. Hopefully, within this calendar year, we'll see this rollout for all the different clients out there. And as you saw, it's pretty easy to get into the new Teams client. Just hit the toggle switch in the upper left-hand corner. Now, once you got it installed, there's some cool things, but some things that are a little bit different. And one of the things that actually kind of threw me for a loop were the way that updates worked. So it actually updates in the background. Whereas with the classic client, I would go to the settings menu, go and toggle the updates. I showed that just a moment ago. This one actually updates in the background. And if there is an update available, it'll actually show you that update. So for example, if I'm in the client here, I'm in the new one, and I go to the drop down, there's no update option. It doesn't show me that there's an update available. What will actually happen is I'll see an update when there is one, and it'll actually show in this menu bar right up here. So that's where I'm actually going to see any updates coming from. So I think that's a better way of doing it. Keep that stuff loaded in the background, so I'm not having to constantly refresh or update back and forth. So I'm a big fan of that. So if the update's available, the button's going to show. Now, the updates automatically whenever you want to restart it. I did find a conversation around that where some people were asking some specific questions, and there was a Reddit thread where they talked a little bit about that. And so you'll see the update button in the upper right hand corner. Just wanted to make sure people were aware of that because that's a little bit different. Now, let's start talking about all the amazing things that the new Teams client supports. And this one right here is probably my favorite. This is probably the one that I am most excited about, multi-tenant support. So if you've ever worked in Teams and you have to log into more than one Microsoft tenant, you know how painful it can be in order to do that. You have to log out and then you have to log back in. So you have to shut down the Teams client and then basically restart it. Or you have to use multiple browser profiles. So like you have to do the browser profiles for like each client that you want to work in. And then you're using the web version of Teams, which doesn't quite have everything that the desktop supports. So with that, the new client actually supports multi-tenant support, which is amazing because I can log in to multiple tenants using the same email address, but I can also log into multiple tenants using multiple email addresses. That is really cool. And in addition, with this new model, they've done some unified notifications, meaning that if I'm in one tenant, I can still receive some notifications, maybe coming from another tenant, if somebody messages me or pings me from that other location, which is really cool. So let's actually talk about that. I'm going to demo that live so you can see it. Here I am in the new Teams client. In the upper corner here, I see who I'm logged in as. There is a caution arrow there. It's telling me that I need to re-log in to maybe a couple of tenants that I haven't been to in a while. But if I choose from the drop down here, I can see a list of all the tenants that I'm working with. The green check indicates that everything's good to go. The red exclamation means I just haven't logged in there in a while. So I have a couple of those out there. But you can see all these tenants that are listed here, I'm actually logged into with my Andy account. So this is Andy, this is me, this is my tenant, and I'm logged in with that Andy account. But notice down here, this is a completely separate Andy. This is Andy in a demo tenant that I have set up. So I'm actually in two places at the same time, and so it's possible for me to like switch over into that other location. So it's just going to ask me to sign in real quick. Let me just grab that password off screen. Multi-factor authentication. I'll approve that. And in just a second, everything should be good to go. And there I am. Now I've switched into a completely separate tenant, and I can interact and I can work from there, but I can now go back to my main tenant. And you see how fast that was, how fast it was able to switch back and forth. So I think that's a huge benefit to those of us that actually have to work in multiple environments. So say you're working for an organization and that organization has maybe a couple of acquisitions, or maybe you're getting ready to undergo some mergers. This is going to be a huge benefit to that, because now you can easily switch back and forth between the separate Microsoft tenants, and you can engage with one another before you decide to migrate and move those tenants together, or before you engage in other products Microsoft offers, like the Microsoft Entra program for cross-tenant collaboration. So that's a really cool feature. Just wanted to point that out. We're going to see more of the multi-tenant support as I go through the demo and work from there. But what you're going to find if you've ever used Teams Mobile, that the desktop now supports a very similar experience to the mobile device, where I can receive notifications across multiple tenants in the same app. I can easily switch back and forth. I don't have to do the sign in and sign out dance a whole bunch of times. And that's a huge benefit, I think, to productivity. Now with that, we need to dive in and talk a little bit about things like the feature parity. So as cool as it is to have a refreshed app with a whole bunch of extra power behind the scenes and to be able to support multiple tenants, not all the features in the classic teams are currently supported in the new teams today. This is something that Microsoft is aware of. I'm going to show you a couple of references to that in just a moment. But the feature parity is a work in progress. They are slowly rolling out features each and every week to bring these two classic and the new teams to parity. So with that, I just want to introduce a couple of additional articles to you. So this one is really good. This is from Microsoft Adoption. It has a link to the full announcement, which I posted in the chat window for those of you joining live a moment ago. Shows you a couple of things about how to opt in. You get the training guide, and then this is the cool thing. This shows you the new features, what's available, and what's being worked on. So this is kind of the roadmap to understand what's available today and what's coming soon. And notice up here, they have a date about when it was last updated. And this is updated a few times since this blog post actually went live. So I'm going to paste this into the chat window for those of you that are joining in live. Give me just a second. Actually, let me just grab it from here because I don't know if it's in my clipboard history or not. There we go. All right, so you should be able to get to the adoption page. So take a look through this and then pay attention down here to the technical documentation, the administration pieces, and they've got some information from the IT pro standpoint how you should look at actually rolling this out. Now, just referencing the technical documentation, I'll put this link in the chat window as well for anybody that needs it, but it's available from that article. So couple things that you need to know ahead of time. There's an explanation of what the new Teams is. The prerequisites, remember, currently Windows only, and you need Windows 10 or Windows 11 in order to run it. And then they talk about how to actually turn it on. And those of you that are admins, they've got the instructions for the admin center about how you can manage your Teams update policies in order to implement this. Now, moving down, there's a section for your installation issues if you run into any of those. So for example, there might be some policy settings restricting downloads and install. They talk about how to actually manage that. And then there's some troubleshooting. So for example, if you try to toggle into the new client and it doesn't work, they've got some troubleshooting content for you. A couple of FAQs. Now moving down, they have the entire section about what features are still missing. And nice little chart that breaks that down with descriptions around that. And then below that, they have the known issues. And we're going to go through some of this, and you're going to see some of this live in just a couple of minutes. But they are documenting, they are keeping track of the feature parity for you. So use these resources, and that's going to help you to stay up to date on what's happening and what's going on with the new Teams client. All right, so with that, I got a list of things that I want to go down through and just kind of talk about from a feature parity standpoint so that we have transparency and you're fully aware right away. So let's actually dive in. First thing we're going to talk about is Teams management. So we use Teams to manage teams, a group of people working together through channels and working together through tabs to have conversations or posts, to manage files, and to be able to work together. So let's take a look at working in channels and tabs and working with members. So I'm in the Teams client. I'm going to head down to Teams along the left-hand navigation. I can see my teams and channels here. First thing I want to point out is notice I have multiple teams listed here, and I am seeing standard channels. I'm also seeing private channels, and I'm seeing share channels in here. So the channel module is completely supported. Now, moving into a channel, the first thing that you should notice is that our entire world has been flipped upside down. Channels, the newest message now is at the top, and then older messages are are at the bottom. That's different than what we're used to, because used to be newer things were at the bottom and then older things were at the top. Now we scroll inside of a channel from top to bottom. So if you've worked with Viva Engage, formerly known as Yammer, then you're familiar with this. New is at the top, less recent as you move to the bottom. So I think about Pirates of the Caribbean, Captain Jack Sparrow, when they're on the ship and they're trying to get out of the in-between, and he's like up is down, and they run back and forth, and they tip the boat over, and then they're underwater, and they get out. Up is down. So think about up is down here whenever you're working inside of here. So we're going to start new messages at the top. And a couple of neat things about that. So right away, when I just click inside of that box, and I'll go to another channel and just show you the same thing. I place my cursor in here, and right away it takes me into editing mode. And what I really like is that the A with the paintbrush, I don't have to click on that for things like my formatting options. All I did was click inside of this box, and right away it's cursors in there. I'm ready to edit, but I have all the formatting options available. So one less click to be able to start drafting my message. Copy, cut, and paste is still supported, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But the formatter is automatically displayed for me. I don't have to click into that, which I think that's like a huge benefit. So we'll just call this the new Teams, and we'll do a copy, cut, and paste so we can just see. Let me actually go here. There we go. Just going to copy some text, go and drop that in. And it does keep, if we want, it does keep the source formatting. And I can go ahead and I can post this message from here. But if there's anything I need to annotate now, super easy for me to be able to go back and emphasize certain things and be able to update a message, because I don't have to go into the formatter. It's little things, I think, that make this way more efficient, and I think that's one of them. But a couple other things I want to point out as we're getting ready to format and work with this message. You still have the ability to do things like work with tables, columns, and rows. You're still going to be able to do things like mark something as important. You're still going to be able to do your embed, your links, your quotes, and all the additional formatting options that you worked with previously. Now, things like attachments, your emojis, GIFs, stickers, all of that's still supported. You still have the ability to work with stream, praising, approvals, and then there are some apps, we'll talk more about that in a moment, there are some apps supported, but not all apps. All right, so streamlines this whole process, I think, for entering in content. Now, I'm going to post this because I'm in a channel, I'm posting, but from the drop down, I want to point out, we can toggle on or off replies. It's inline, it's simple, it's easy to get to. I think before it was up top and it was kind of almost hidden away. So I'm going to post something in this channel. Well, now I can choose whether people can reply or not. And then the other thing I want to point out is next to post, there's this little icon. We can determine the type of post. Now, there are two. There's a post and there's an announcement. So I started drafting a post. Now I can quickly switch that into an announcement if I need to. So now it's going to be an announcement. I can give it a nice image, background color, draw attention to it however I need. So now I'm making an announcement, and I can make this big and bold and visual for my users. Now, one thing I do notice as I'm doing this, like I'm going to create this post. One of the features that is not there from the classic teams is the ability to post in multiple channels. I don't see that currently. That I believe that's on the roadmap to be updated at some point. But I can make a post here inside of this particular channel. So this is going to be an announcement, post it, and there it is. Now, a couple other things, just minor, that I'm noticing. I made this as an announcement. It's got the big, bold banner, but I think the part that might be missing that some users might be interested in is the little bullhorn or megaphone over here in red. I don't see that as I post an announcement here, so that's going to be a little bit different for users. But I really like the streamlined interface because now the reply is clearly separated and starting a new post is here. Before, I feel like these things were kind of muddy because like I might have a button down here that says like new post, and sometimes it would hide the reply button, and so users might get confused to start a new post because they don't see a reply button, and then we get two separate conversations happening inside of the channel. So I like that the reply is clearly connected to the message, and then the start a new post is clearly up at the top and it's out of the way. So I think that's a big benefit to the way that they're structuring channels. But it might take a little bit of muscle memory for your users to get used to things being at the top and then older messages being down at the bottom. But if you've got Yammer, Viva Engage memory, it should apply this, or it should be fairly easy to work with. Now, since we're talking about teams, we've got to talk about tabs on the top. So we do have the ability to tab in. So here we have the Files tab. So I am able to view the files that are in the General tab. And let's say I open up a document inside of there. It's going to open this up. And in this case, it's actually popping it out to the web. So I wanted to try to open that file in the Teams client, but it's trying to open that in the web. Let's actually just go and look at the meatball menu and see what my options are. So let's see if we can try to make it edit in Teams. Now it's telling me in this case, I need to switch to classic Teams to be able to open this. So this is another feature that's not fully there yet. Being able to directly edit that in Teams, I would imagine that's going to be coming sooner rather than later. Now I just want to check out the upload option. So let's go in, let's see if I can just upload a file real quick. Actually, I just need to go 1 second. There we go. Nope. There, we'll just use this. Upload. Uploading the item, and uploaded that relatively fast. So upload definitely works, and this is an image. So let's actually see if the preview works on that, and it does. Did a deep dive on this a few weeks ago, so there's the preview. All right, so being able to work in the Files tab, not able to directly open it, but it does open in the web browser pretty quickly. And then we've seen the upload actually works. Now, what about some of the additional features that we work with inside of channels? For example, being able to work with tabs along the top. Let's actually go to a new channel. All right, so I'm in a different channel, don't have as many things over there, and the add a tab button is currently not available. So we're going to go check the meatball menu. I don't see it there. Let's manage the channel, see if anything pops up. And I don't see the ability right now to be able to tab in something new in the channel. So it looks like that's going to be something that's going to be coming here in the near future. All right, now what about creating a channel? So if I go here, I'm looking, I can manage the team here, but I don't see anything for managing a channel. So let's go in, let's look at the members. All right, so this is the members list, and just taking a look at it right away, I don't see the add a member or guest button. So right now in the new Teams client, I can't add users to my team, but I can manage the ones that are already there. So if I wanted to remove somebody, I would be able to do that. So the management is a little limited, but I can very quickly search through, find who I'm looking for. I just can't add someone today. So that's something that's on the roadmap they're going to address hopefully in the near future. So managing the team, not able to add members in the new Teams experience, but don't forget, you can toggle back and forth if you need. You can also just go to the web and add the members, and you can just keep working here. Now let's take a look at channels. So go to the channels tab. It shows me the channels that are available in the team, deleted, shared, and other. And then the active channels that are here. Again, I don't see an add a channel button. So that's something that I would need to do in the classic experience. It's a toggle to the classic, or maybe go to the web. And I do want to emphasize this is April of 2023. So if you're watching this video later on, hopefully these things have been updated and adjusted by Microsoft. All right, since I'm in the settings menu, let's go ahead to the settings itself. I can view the team details. I can look at the member permissions that are there. I can manage member and guest permissions. I can control things like app mentions. I can generate team codes for joining it. I can control the fun stuff that's there, and I can use and work with the tags inside of there. So I would be able to work with managing users and tagging users if I need. So settings are pretty much lined up. There's some analytics. So in the analytics tab, we can see active users, engagement. We can choose the time period that we're looking for, see the engagement there, but we can also see the engagement across the teams. And then lastly, we've got the tags area. So any tags that are there, we can also go ahead and create new tags. So we can create tags, we just can't manage the members by adding new people. So hopefully that'll come in time. All right, so those are a few things that I wanted to point out around the channel experience for users to be aware of. So adding channels, got to go back to Classic. Managing, adding members, got to go back to Classic. Otherwise, managing current members and being able to work with the content that's there, that's all available. Now, let's talk a little bit about app management. We mentioned this a little bit a moment ago, but adding and removing apps, pinning and reordering, and then some of the app icons. So some of the things that are listed here are actually known issues, but we're just going to kind of walk through this. So let's actually head back into the client. And as we mentioned before, my ability to pin things in the along the top limits my ability to work with apps. However, in some situations, like let's say I'm here and I'm posting something, I do have apps available. Now, not all of the apps that are available in the classic client are currently available in the new client. Remember, the architecture has been rebuilt, so it's different. So some of those are in the process being rebuilt and updated. There are a few apps that are available, but not all of the apps are actually available currently. So like, for example, I'm just doing a quick search, OneNote, it's not there. And that's in this particular instance. Now, what about the sidebar? What if I go on the left-hand side here and I go down and want to see if there are additional apps? This is kind of what we're limited to at the current time. But again, I think that's an architecture consideration. So if you have an app brought in, there's no guarantee that it's going to work in the new client. So just keep that in mind as you're trying to pin things along the top there. All right, so now let's switch over, talk a little bit about chat. So we're going to try a couple of different things. We're going to try to chat internally within the organization, and we're going to try to chat externally across the organization. We're also going to talk about mentioning people and how that's going to apply. So we'll head back. I'm going to go to chat in the upper corner here, and then just start a new chat. I got a student internally, student 11. There they are. Hello. Able to start with them right away. I'm still able to do things like pop out the message. So now I've got this chat and this message off to the side, and I would be able to work with those teammates and have that conversation there. So the chat feature in this case is intact, and for the most part, it's what we're used to. New messages at the top. I'm going to be on the right-hand side in purple. Responses will come back on the left-hand side. And then I type the new message down at the bottom. And most of the same controls are actually available down there. You've got the formatter. You got the ability to mark things as important. And then some of the additional icons. You can share your files here. That is still connected to your OneDrive account. I can still add people into the chat. I can pop the message out. And then I can very quickly get into that user's information. But what happens if I want to chat with somebody external, somebody outside of the organization? So let's go in here. So this is Andy. He's in another tenant. I'm going to put in the email address, tells me that this person's external. That's great. Let's try to start a conversation with them. All right, tells me it's part of an organization. And notice down here, I got a message. Now that's kind of cool because if you remember from a little while ago, I'm in 2 tenants at the same time. I'm actually in a bunch of different tenants, but I'm in 2 tenants at the same time. This is the toast notification. So this showed up down here to tell me that Andy from Upskill is trying to contact Andy at ASPE Demo. In fact, if I go up here to the top, it'll tell me in some cases if there's other activity across tenants. So I might need to follow up on that. Now that being said, my other Andy is getting a response to accept. I'm just going to accept that. And so we are, in this case, able to chat externally, which is really, really cool. And we're able to work. Now, let me just switch over. And just like that, I'm in the Andy as part of the ASPE demo and go over here. And here's the conversation we were having. So I'm able to view that, pop that out, do some work. That's cool. All right, now I'm going to switch back over here to Andy at Upskill. Now I'm Andy at Upskill, but I think this is really neat. This message is still open. And so I'm over here chatting as Andy external with Andy in another tenant. I'm in 2 places at the same time. Like, that's really cool. So this is me as Andy at Upskill, and I can see that conversation happening, but I'm still engaged in the other conversation as the other user external to the tenant that I'm currently in. So for multi-tenant collaboration, I think Microsoft's fixed that one. That's pretty awesome. So while we are able to have cross-tenant external conversation, we can have internal conversation if we need it. Some pretty amazing features in chat. And if you find you're someone who works cross-tenant, you can just keep the chat window open with whoever you're communicating with in the background while you continue to have the Teams client and the main tenant that you work with. So pretty neat stuff. All right, next up, let's talk a little bit about meetings. Now, this is where the feature parity is going to be pretty disparate. There are a number of things in the meetings that are yet to be implemented, but from a simple join and present and engage perspective, meetings are one-to-one. So if I need to join a meeting, use audio and video, and share my screen, I'm going to be able to do that, no problem. In fact, we're going to have a meeting. So let me go to my calendar. Let's schedule a meeting. I'm going to send this to external Andy. All right. Yeah, and that's fine. And then you can see the scheduling process is pretty much what we're used to. Not a whole lot's actually changed there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join this meeting. And let's just do this without audio. And I'm just waiting on other Andy's calendar to update. It'll take just a second, and then I'll have other Andy join in that meeting in just a moment as soon as that actually updates, and we'll see others. In the meantime, I'm in the new client. It tells me in the upper left-hand corner, I have things like my chat. It's built right in. I've got my people. I've got my hand. I've got my reactions. Got my views. We've got the menu that we're used to, the kind of updated menu. And then we got the camera and microphone options. So not a lot's actually changed there. Let me just see if I can get other Andy in the meeting real quick. So all right, he's joining in. There's other Andy. Now we're in two people. I'm wearing the hat. He's not. But we're in the meeting, and we're able to engage. Now, Andy's over here. We're in my upskill tenant. I'm in the meeting. We're sharing content. We're doing things. So let's take a look at the share tray. All right. So I'm going to view the share tray, and a few things that I just want to point out. So when I go to the share tray, right away I can share my screen. So I can pick the screen that I want to share. I can pick a window like before. I do have PowerPoint Live. So if I have a PowerPoint presentation that's in the cloud, I'm going to be able to reference that. But I do want to point out, notice there's no whiteboard here and there's no Excel Live. So those are not currently supported. But if I wanted to broadcast PowerPoint Live, that's actually going to work, and we're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to share the computer sound, but just know the whiteboard experience is not there currently, and then the experience for Excel Live is not there. Also note, no presenter mode. So the ability to do like the reporter view or the overlay or the side-by-side view, those are not currently supported. Hopefully those will be here in the near future. But I can turn on my camera, and so I can have a camera feed recorded as we've always done. I'm just not going to be able to get some of those new modes inside of here. So did want to point that out. There are some limitations when it comes to things like the presenter view, whiteboard. That even leads into annotations. Like when I'm actually presenting something, I'm not going to have the annotation. So let's say I share my screen. All right, so I'm sharing my screen here in the meeting. There's no pop-up menu bar like we might be used to from the classic experience, where I can control things like the presenter views, where I can control the annotations. They're just not there currently, but hopefully we'll get those in the near future. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, head back to the meeting. Now I'm in a meeting with Andy, and we're doing some stuff. But I'm going to go back to Teams for just a second. In fact, I'm going to switch over, and I'm going to switch tenants. I'm in another tenant. I'm over in my ASPE demo tenant. I'm still in the meeting. I am in two places at the same time. It did not drop me from the call. So I'm able to stay here in the meeting and engage, and then go to another tenant and grab some information, and then switch back and forth basically as needed. That's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of that. But other things that the meetings are still going to support, the ability to have things like the reactions, the ability to engage with one another, those are still going to be there as part of the meeting experience. All right, so I wanted you to see that feature, that we are able to do things like be in a meeting and go cross-tenant. Now, what happens if Andy on the other side schedules a meeting and wants me to actually join that? So let me go to Andy on the other side and have him schedule a meeting and send it over to this Andy. All right. So sending that out, meeting invite's going to come over in just a second. Just wanted you to see all the ins and outs of that. And that should pop up in just a moment. Don't forget, if you have questions, please feel free to ask through the chat window. Happy to answer some of those as we're doing this. Let's see if I can't get this to go a little faster. Cross in. There we go. So this is the one that I created, and this is the new one. All right, so I'm going to go and join this one. Andy on the other side is the organizer. I should have given these different names. Now I'm going to go and join this, and notice up here it's telling me ASPE demo, and I'm joining, and there's the toast menu, tells me the message is coming in, but this tells me where which tenant that I'm actually in. So if I can go up here and I can actually view that and see that I'm in the ASPE demo meeting, and I'll just have other Andy join. And one thing to point out, when I did that, because I have both accounts logged in here, both ASPE Andy and Upskill Andy, it actually put me in the as the organizer of this particular meeting. So it actually switched me over into the organizer role, just like that. Even though I'm up here as this Upskill person, it had me switch over to that, which is very interesting. All right. So I'm gonna have the other Andy join. Now, it's telling me, hey, you joined on another machine, or Andy started that meeting over there. Do you want to join? So I'm just gonna join in over here. This is me as Upskill. I know this feels like Inception. We're multiple levels down in the onion here. Just waiting on the join there. And now I'm in the meeting. So joining's pretty straightforward, but just a couple of nuances with that. Depending on where the meeting's scheduled, whether or not you're the organizer, it does jump across tenants and put you into the meeting in the right place. And I think that's going to streamline joining meetings for a lot of end users. So just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out in the demo here. Now I could probably do an entire hour on all things meeting, but I just wanted to show some of the high level things associated with that as we get a little bit close to the end. Now you're probably wondering about some of the other features, other things that might not be there. So I do want to point out breakout rooms are not currently supported. Whiteboard is not currently supported. We already mentioned Excel Live. That's not currently supported. The various presenter modes, those are not supported currently. The attendance report. The attendance report's actually limited. You can download, but the attendance tab with some of the details that we've gotten recently are not there. Another thing that's not there is the call health. So if I'm in the call, going to the more options menu and being able to see the call health is not currently there. Some of your meeting apps are not currently available. So things like the ability to do a poll, A poll is not currently supported, for instance, inside of there, or the games for work for people that are maybe waiting in the lobby for a meeting or not the lobby, but the beginning of the meeting, waiting on the meeting to start. And then a couple other things, some of the newer things that we're going to wrap up with here in a minute, things like the camera filters, the video overlays, and the avatars are not currently supported in the new Teams client. And then for those of us that are big fans of the Stream Deck, I'm one of those, some of the controls for the Stream Deck are not there currently. So this is just a list of things that are not currently there. Again, if you go back to the new Microsoft Teams blog article and you scroll down to features and Teams, this is a pretty good running list of things that are not quite there, but make sure you cross-reference that with this article, the new Teams desktop client, and go down to the section in this article where it talks about the known issues. And it does break down and tell you things like apps and calendars, workarounds for some of that, and it gives you a detailed description of some things that you might not have available, or like, for example, if you're in like GCC High or DoD, you're not going to be able to use some of this stuff. It's not there yet, but it'll give you an idea of some of the features that are not there yet, but they are doing a good job of keeping the roadmap up to date with that information. So again, you'll find the known issues as part of this link here, and I'll put that in the chat window. All right, so that's kind of an overview of the new Teams client. I'm a big fan. There's still a little bit of work to do. It's a work in progress, as any big labor-intensive endeavor is, such as rebuilding a client from the ground up that supports hundreds of features and works with 300 million active monthly users. I believe that's the most recent numbers from Microsoft. Over 300 million active monthly users on this, which is huge. Now, last couple of things as we get toward the end here. Microsoft does have a series of blog posts around Microsoft Teams specifically, as well as some of the things that might be new or rolling out to Microsoft Teams. There's just a few things that I wanted to point out going back to December, and then some of the newer things from there. Most recently, at Enterprise Connect in March, they made a huge announcement for a lot of the features in March. And again, there were a couple hundred things that they did to the Teams client, the biggest of which they announced the new Teams client, and they did a breakdown of that. But they announced a number of new features that also apply to the classic client. So definitely keep this article in mind. And we'll put this in the show note descriptions if anybody needs it. But going back a couple of months, so Teams Premium has a number of new features that you should be aware of. I do appreciate that they are breaking out the premium features versus the non-premium features for those of us that don't have a premium license currently. So you can kind of keep track of that. So some of the things from the non-premium side of the house that they've updated, virtual appointments is a new feature that they're rolling out. The push on this is kind of toward healthcare. It does require a Microsoft 365 license, but it allows you to create a virtual appointment with people that are external, which is pretty cool. We're just going back up to the top here. A premium feature that I'm interested in, but going to involve a premium license, is actually the intelligent recap. The intelligent recap takes the audio, converts it to a text file, and then does some AI-based things to that that are huge time savers. One, it automatically generates chapters. So when you switch screens or you go to a new slide, it automatically creates chapter markers in your presentation for you. Additionally, there's timeline markers. And so you can see timeline markers when maybe you joined a call or when you left a call, so you can quickly get back to what you may have missed while you were gone. Live translation This one's really nice. 40 different spoken languages. They can translate in real time at the bottom of the screen. And then I just want to point out one more thing as it goes along with the intelligent recap. In addition to the recap, they also have intelligent summaries that they're starting to roll out in Teams Premium, where it gives you a list of bullet points of key takeaways from that meeting, a list of actionable items to go back and follow up later on. And you can search based off of a user to find specific information in the sidebar. That stuff's all premium, but it's next level for being able to consume a whole bunch of content across a whole bunch of different meetings all in a row. Teams templates are another feature that they're starting to push out. A template has a predefined set of like meeting options and meeting settings pre-configured so that it makes it easy for you to schedule a certain type of call. So maybe you want to do like a client call, you have some settings specific to that versus like an internal call with your team. Maybe you have a help desk call that you want to schedule. There's a certain set of settings that you want to use with that. You're going to be able to do that with the Teams Premium. They're also including in Premium some branded meetings, so the ability to have your organization's brand represented as part of that meeting with no fancy camera tricks or workarounds. It basically works out of the box, and you can use your organizational marketing materials for some of that. That also goes over into some organizational specific backgrounds and even the ability to watermark your meetings. So if data leaks, the watermark will be in the screenshot. With that. So that's pretty awesome. But again, a premium feature. Going back, a couple other things. The toolbar, we saw this in the new client, but it also extends to the classic client. They've tried to streamline the toolbar a little bit so that when you go to the meatball menu, things like record and translate are all underneath one tab, language and speech are all underneath one tab, and settings are all underneath one tab. On one hand, things are a little bit more organized. On the other hand, it's 1, 2, 3 clicks for me to get to the device settings if I need to make an adjustment in real time. I'm not a huge fan of that. I kind of wish the device settings would stay outside of that, but I understand why it might be grouped together. That's going to be on both Classic and the new client. We saw that in the demo. Webinars. So there's a new webinar experience. This has been rolling out here in first quarter of 2023. The new webinar experience makes it so that you have a simplified meeting scheduling form for the webinar. Rather than paint a picture, why don't we just go and demo it? So webinar. So this is the webinar form. So this is going to allow me to invite people to participate in the webinar. I can capture bios and reuse presenter bios across multiple webinars. If I need, I can drop in theming if I need it, and then there's some reports. Additionally, it's going to allow me to customize a registration form that attendees can use to register for my event. And these webinars can be internal to the organization or they can be external and public outside of the organization. And they give this really nice about this event for the meeting experience down here. So that you can see exactly what to expect from the end user point of view, such as these participants are going to be able to chat and use reactions and use the Q&A feature unless I modify the default options for the meeting. So this updated form really streamlines the process of creating a webinar and modifying the registration form and keeping presenters separate from attendees. This has been rolling out all through the first quarter here. I think that's a pretty big deal. So I just wanted to make sure I called that out as part of some of the things that are new. And then lastly, just going back to December, something that's long been asked for and now it's here. Yes, you can delete a chat. You have the ability, let me just close that. You have the ability to delete an entire chat. That's been a big ask, and now we have that. They've expanded the reactions. You can add more than just the default 5 emojis that were there. You can go crazy with a whole bunch of emojis. You can add people to a group chat just by mentioning them. Just little things, time savers. You can recommend people when you're, or you see recommended people when creating a new message. And they've done a bunch of things like with the Teams meeting devices. They've now given the experience so it looks a little bit more like what we expect on the Teams client. I don't have the time to go through all the hundreds of features and updates that they've made over the last couple of months. But with that, We did cover the known issues. Keep track of the Microsoft roadmap for any updates related to this. You'll find that again from the new Teams client listing. That's where the main thing. So the last question that you have is, when do you make the switch? And that just depends on what you're doing. If I'm doing a heavy presentation, I'm going to stay in the classic client for now because I like having whiteboard. I like having the annotation features. I like having the presenter views. But if I'm just day-to-day joining a meeting, working in a chat, and I'm not a team owner and adding or removing users, I can go to the new client today and have a great experience and not miss anything. But if I am somebody who needs to manage members of a team, I'm going to need to use the classic client or the web for that. If I am somebody who delivers advanced presentations, I'm going to need the classic client in order to do that. But if I'm somebody that needs to tenant switch, the new Teams client is definitely the way to go for that. So whether you make the switch today or down the road, it really depends on what you need. That being said, my organization, we're probably not going to roll this out for end users for quite a while until the feature parity catches up, and then maybe just pull the Band-Aid all at one time and get our users up to speed with that. So I've got a bunch of resources I've posted in the chat window. I'll post the rest in the description. And with that, we're at the top of the hour. I want to say thank you for joining in here live in YouTube land with us for the April 2023 Charlotte area SharePoint user group meetup. My name's Andy. Feel free to join us in our meetup community. Also, feel free to reach us on YouTube. Let me know what you thought about today's event in the chat window or in the comments down below. And hopefully we will see you in the next Charlotte area SharePoint user group meeting. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.